One of the most influential figures in the galaxy is Mon Mothma. Born in 48 BBY to a political family on Chandrila, a life in politics was inevitable. At 15 years old, Mothma's teenage rebellion kicked in. She turned her back on a political future and studied history. She fell in love with Perrin Firtha, and the two teenagers wed soon after. This small diversion in her destiny only lasted until the following summer. Mothma joined the Galactic Senate at 16 years old. She moved to the capital, Coruscant, with Perrin. A few years after joining the Senate, another remarkable young woman joined, Padme Amidala. She was representing her homeworld of Naboo. Mothma and Amidala seemed to have a lot in common, but Mothma disliked the senator from Naboo. Padme's planet was being unjustly blockaded by the Trade Federation. She called for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum. Mothma saw this as Amidala putting her own planet's needs above the needs of the galaxy at large. Mothma loved the Republic. She was aware of its shortcomings and worried about them. In private, she would discuss her concerns with Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan and Senator Onaconda Farr of Rhodia. Mutual friends and interests set her as an ally of Amidala, but she still didn't consider the senator from Naboo a friend. In time, Mothma would see Padme as a crucial ally in maintaining the Republic. The Confederacy of Independent Systems was threatening war. Mothma, Organa, and Amidala were part of Chancellor Palpatine's Loyalist Committee. Mothma and her peers advocated for peace. These calls for peace were already too late. A secret clone army had been commissioned by a Jedi, and the Separatists had been hard at work creating a massive droid army. The galaxy was embroiled in a civil war. Mothma kept advocating for peace. She was worried about the toll the war would take on the citizens of the galaxy. She was also terrified that the ever-increasing powers granted to the Chancellor would threaten the Republic itself. In the final days of the Clone Wars, Mothma and her allies in the Senate saw the writing on the wall. She met with other like-minded senators, including Organa and Amidala. Amidala feared Palpatine would end the Senate. Mothma argued that this would be a needless endeavor, as the Senate's power was so diminished they barely mattered anyway. Mothma was the first to point out that Palpatine had been playing them all the entire time. Mothma and Bail started meeting in secret, even keeping the meeting secret from their other long-term allies. They began plans for a very real armed rebellion in the event that Palpatine would become a tyrant. Eventually, they would discuss these things with Amidala. Mothma wanted to take action against Chancellor Palpatine. Amidala suggested they bring it up to Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, a Jedi she trusted. Mothma and Organa wanted to appeal to the Senate before involving the Jedi. They were too late. The Clone Wars came to a violent end. Palpatine convinced the galaxy that the Jedi attempted to seize control of the government. He had the clone army execute the Jedi as traitors. In the name of stability and security, the Republic became an empire, with Palpatine at the top. Mothma's worst fears became a reality. Emperor Palpatine had a large number of senators rounded up and arrested, claiming they colluded with the traitorous Jedi. Mothma and Organa publicly pledged their allegiance to the Empire and were released. In private, they continued their plans of rebellion. They both remained active members of the Senate, doing what little they could for the citizens of the galaxy. Their real work was in gathering allies, informants, and like-minded politicians to join their cause. Mothma remained married during all of this. Her husband and her daughter felt her absence. Even when Mothma was physically present, her mind was elsewhere. Her husband formed friendships with her political rivals, and her daughter grew to resent her absentee mother. Years passed under the oppressive Imperial regime. Mothma and Organa sowed seeds of rebellion all the while. Organa had adopted the daughter of Amidala, who died delivering twins. When Leia Organa was old enough, Mothma became her political tutor. Leia would take her father's senatorial seat and become a leader in the growing rebellion. Leia would host dinner parties at her family's palace on Alderaan. These parties were a front for Leia to get rebel organizers together. In 2 BBY, Mothma spoke out against Imperial forces slaughtering peaceful protesters. Emperor Palpatine declared her a traitor. Leia put Mothma in touch with Hera Syndulla, a leader of a small rebel cell. Imperial agents tried to arrest Mothma, and a small skirmish ensued. She, along with her senatorial attaché, fled with Syndulla and her crew. When Mothma was safe, she broadcast a speech across the holonet. This speech called out the Emperor as corrupting the Senate. She went on to say that the Senate was no longer able to protect the rights and freedoms of the citizens. She blatantly called for the formation of an alliance to restore the Republic. This proclamation brought all the individual cells rebelling against the Empire together. 1 year before the Battle of Yavin, Mothma served as Chancellor and Commander-in-Chief of the Rebel Alliance. She helped run Operation Fracture by assembling the team. She insisted on Jyn Erso's involvement. She also assigned Cassian Andor, citing he was one of the rebellion's best operatives. The goal of the operation was to contact an extremist cell. These freedom fighters were against the Empire, but not part of the Rebel Alliance. This, in turn, was to lead to Erso's father and gain intel about the Empire's superweapon. Jyn's father, Galen, died in the rescue attempt, but important information was retrieved. A rogue group of rebels defied orders from Alliance High Command, including Mothma, and went to Scarif to retrieve plans to the Death Star. Mothma and her allies reconsidered backing up the group now going by Rogue One. A major offensive took place over Scarif. Rogue One was lost along with much of the Rebel fleet. The intel recovered during the mission would prove invaluable to the Rebels' cause. Not long after Scarif, the Alliance attacked the looming Death Star. This was an all-or-nothing attempt on the part of the rebellion that resulted in a major victory. In the time after the victory at Yavin, the rebellion grew. Things weren't easy. Dangerous missions, covert meetings, and shaky alliances defined Mothma's life. A few years after the Battle of Yavin, Luke Skywalker hurried into Alliance command. He told Mothma, General Syndulla, and Admiral Akbar about a pair of spies he had helped. These spies were stationed on a second Death Star. Mothma declared right then and there that if the Alliance could defeat the first Death Star, they would do the same with the second. Confirmation by the Bothan Spynet on the Death Star 2 came shortly after. Mothma shared the information with those closest to her. She didn't want the rebellion at large to learn about it and panic before having a plan in place. The information on the second battle station gave the Alliance its location. They also learned the superweapon wasn't currently operational. Despite the high cost the Bothan spies paid, Mothma believed this information to be an intentional leak. Trap or not, she decided the Rebel Alliance would have to deal with the second Death Star before it could become a greater threat. Only one delay was made on a new offensive. A small task force was going to rescue Han Solo from the gangster Jabba the Hutt. Solo was a natural leader, but the real reason Mothma agreed to wait was Leia's personal feelings for Solo. Her own marriage was dead in the water. Leia had lost many years, her parents, and even her homeworld to the Empire. The Alliance fleet assembled. Mothma led the briefing on a multi-stage plan to take down the second Death Star. Mothma was correct that the information she received was partially false. She was also correct that this was a trap. Rebel casualties were high, but the rebellion succeeded. The battle station was destroyed, and the Emperor himself defeated. A mere 20 days after the Battle of Endor, Mothma was already busy establishing a new government. The plan was to return the galaxy to a democracy. Mothma reached out to countless star systems about joining this new republic. She re-established the Galactic Senate. Coruscant was still partially under Imperial control, so she set the new Senate on her home planet. She was elected the first Chancellor of the new Republic. The office came with all the emergency powers Palpatine received before declaring himself Emperor. This made Mothma uneasy. She vowed to give the power back to the people. She also began cutting back on the galactic military. Her plan was to reduce the centralized military by 90%. The remaining would train local militias to defend individual planets or systems. Many worlds, still under Imperial control, were home to smaller rebellions. Mothma and her allies aided these whenever possible. More and more systems joined the new republic. She had to make countless difficult choices on where to send resources. She also had to prioritize certain systems over others as resources were stretched thin. Imperial Grand Admiral Ray Sloane, who was in charge of the Imperial Remnant, reached out to Mothma. Sloane and Mothma agreed to peace talks, an opportunity far too appealing to pass up. These peace talks were a trap. Mothma was almost assassinated. The close call didn't stop her. The Imperial Remnant consolidated around the inner rim planet Jakku. Mothma wasn't happy that Leia had gone around the Senate in pursuit of this information. She said that no military action was possible without bringing it to the Senate first. Senator Tolwal Wartle spied on the meeting and spun this to the HoloNet news networks. He made Mothma look weak and indecisive. She aired a rebuttal to set the record straight. She confronted Wartle. While this was going on, the Senate voted not to attack the Imperial Remnant on Jakku. Crime syndicates who had been profiting from the ongoing war were bribing senators to drag things out. Mothma used political red tape to tie up the revote on the attack. She cornered Wartle and got him to admit his involvement. 5 corrupt senators were cornered and revealed. They were coerced into voting Mothma's way. With military action approved by the Senate, the new Republic went to war with the rest of the former Empire. The Battle of Jakku was long and deadly. The Republic won. The Grand Vizier of the Empire, Masamida, asked for peace. This time, the peace talks were real. Mothma negotiated a ceasefire. All Imperial military officers were branded war criminals. Imperial non-combatants received conditional pardons. The remaining Imperials were to remain in predetermined territories only. 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, the galaxy looked very different than it had, in no small part, to Mothma's constant efforts. Rumors of a new threat found their way to the Republic Senate. Hera Syndulla warned of Grand Admiral Thrawn returning from exile to wage war, yet no evidence existed and the Senate could not act. Some years later, an aging Mothma fell ill and stepped down from her life in politics. The new chancellors didn't have Mothma's convictions or unwavering morals. The Senate split into two factions. The populists wanted individual planets to hold power and small militias. The centrists wanted a stronger centralized government and a larger military. Leia Organa would have made an excellent predecessor to Mothma, but her political rivals revealed that she was in fact the daughter of Darth Vader. Mothma, among others, supported their friend and ally. Mon Mothma's New Republic didn't remain strong for long after her retirement. That doesn't mean her efforts were in vain. Her decentralization of power and breaking down the galactic military was great in theory. Not enough time and infighting left the New Republic vulnerable to the growing power of the First Order. Mothma is a beacon of morality and democracy in the galaxy. Stronger predecessors and stopping the corruption would have seen a much stronger New Republic. Only time will tell what's to come for the rest of the galaxy. Check out this transmission next for more on incredible characters from the ever-evolving Star Wars galaxy.